I'm Tim of Govberg, and welcome to the world of Omega. Today, I will be your guide to the proper usage, care, and maintenance of your Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch White Side of the Moon. Now, it's important to start out with the fact that this is an automatic winding timepiece by winding rotor. Nevertheless, you can manually wind the timepiece by taking the crown in its first position flush to the case and turning clockwise 30 to 40 times. This will be sufficient to start the movement. You'll see at a minimum whether the chronograph is running or not. Constant seconds at 9 o'clock start to advance. By turning 30 to 40 times, you give the movement a buffer power reserve from which it can then start to wind itself. Now, once you have wound the watch and it's running, you can set the date, you can set the time, you can put it on the wrist, it will continue to wind itself. But if you are determined to wind the watch to its maximum rated power reserve of approximately 60 hours, simply continue turning the crown in a clockwise direction. Because of the bridle style mainspring, which slips to relieve any excess strain, you cannot accidentally overwind this timepiece. So simply listen for the click or tick from within the case that is the bridle slipping. Because you can't overwind it, that is both safe and your sign that the watch is fully wound. Now, the chronograph operates in a specific order. That is, with the pusher at 2 o'clock, you start and you stop. You can also resume using the pusher, but you must stop before you reset. So start, stop, and reset. It should always be in that order, as attempting to reset a running chronograph will crash the movement and cause significant damage. Now, it's also important to note that in conjunction with the tachymeter scale, you can use the chronograph to gauge the speed of an object over a known distance. For instance, a standing kilometer. Simply start when, for instance, an automobile starts the standing kilometer, stop when the vehicle or subject ends the standing distance, such as the standing kilometer, and then read the speed while being mindful of your units off the chromium nitride tachymeter scale. Now, it's important to remember that the watch also features abilities to finally set the time and the date. Now, by pulling the crown to extremity, that is 2 detents out from flush winding position, you'll note that I stopped the constant seconds hand. Indeed, I have stopped the balance of the watch. It is no longer beating. This can be used to set the watch accurately against a known accurate reference time, such as an available online atomic clock. Find an online atomic clock that is set to your time zone, and then stop the seconds hand when it reaches 60. That's the best way to synchronize. Then set the same hour as the atomic clock and set the watch 1 minute ahead compared to your reference. When the reference catches up to read the same second, minute, and hour, push the crown back in, resume the beat of the balance. Now you've synchronized to a reference time. Now, 1 detent out from flush to the case, there is a time zone feature to the caliber 9300, which means you can set the time in 1 hour increments as you jump the international date line. Now, you can use it to drive the date in either direction as you're moving east or west over the international date line. And it's also important to note, even as I'm doing this, the seconds hand at 9 o'clock has not stopped. This does not halt the watch, therefore it does not alter the chronometric precision of the timepiece. Now, it's quite important to keep in mind that there are a number of handling restrictions with respect to the use of your watch that you will want to bear in mind when using it on a daily basis. The slings and arrows and dangers of life on the wrist can be hazardous to the health of your watch. Water resistance, temperature, magnetism, and ultimately shock need to be borne in mind. Let's start with water resistance because it is the greatest threat to your watch. Water that enters the timepiece causes mechanical damage. It causes cosmetic catastrophe. It is the most expensive, damaging, and disruptive possible hazard that could affect your watch short of total physical destruction. The watch is water resistant to 50 meters, which Omega rates as sufficient for surface swimming, inadvertent rain, or splashing while washing one's hand. But even while washing one's hand, keep in mind that the leather is never water resistant. Leather is a natural porous material that degrades in the presence of moisture, so keep it remote from moisture even though the watch may get wet. And if you know the watch is going to get wet, put it on a water resistant band first. It's also important to remember you can avoid accidental drowning of your timepiece. Keep the functions, that is, chronograph pushers and crown, disused. Don't touch them, and keep the crown flush to the case while the watch is submerged and while there's water on the case, as attempting to use any of these functions on a wet watch can bypass the seals and introduce water to the interior. It's also important to remember that water resistance is not a static feature of your watch, so Omega recommends on an annual basis having the watch water tested at an authorized service center. This will ensure that factory-rated hermeticity is retained. Temperature is a concern. A fine mechanical timepiece, due to the components as well as the lubricants involved, should be protected from temperatures in excess of 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius, or below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. Although the watch does feature a silicone hairspring and is robustly anti-magnetic, Omega only rates its METAS-certified master chronometers as completely amagnetic. So in the presence of extreme magnetic fields, such as those produced by medical MRI equipment, take care and keep your distance to be safe. Now, shock is a significant threat to a watch because ultimately it can, at a minimum, cause timing imprecision, and at a maximum, it can actually damage the watch to the point that repairs are necessary. So, although the watch does have robust shock resistance engineered in, Omega advises disuse of the watch during highly concussive sports such as golf, tennis, batting, firearms marksmanship, or ATV and mountain bike riding. Moreover, keep in mind that a ceramic case, by its nature, is exceptionally hard and scratch resistant, but just like a sapphire crystal, because of that hardness, extreme force and hard surfaces, that is, extreme blows against rock, concrete, marble, or metal, can chip or fracture the material, so take care to guard against that eventuality. Finally, Omega recommends every 4 to 5 years a comprehensive service of a fine mechanical timepiece. Now, this should be performed solely at an authorized service center, and it will involve everything from replacement of damaged components and restoration of cosmetics, to restoration of factory water resistance, to cleaning, oiling, and adjustment of the movement. Now, it should be checked every year when you take it in for its annual water test. This is the best way to ensure that you're getting the service when necessary. Performed solely at an authorized service center, either an authorized independent service center designated by Omega, or at the factory itself, as these agencies solely have the trained personnel, specialized equipment and tools, and original Omega factory replacement parts to preserve the value of your watch as both an instrument and as an investment. Moreover, only these agencies are authorized to back all labor and parts invested with an Omega factory service warranty valid for 2 years. Finally, visit our website at govbergwatches.com and call, text, or email our experts who will be happy to walk you through every phase of the ownership, usage, and care of this or any Omega timepiece.